All right, hi everybody. Brocker here. I'm here with my fellow admin for the Hoenn power ranking slash team analysis. How are you doing, Koda?
Doing pretty good. Let's jump right into it.
Yes, let's do that. Whose
So
team are
first
we
we've
looking
got
at?
is Beasts Brawlers, coached by none other than Beast. I believe this is one of our returning coaches. Pretty sure moved up from a lower div. So we're pretty excited to see what they can do in Hoenn. The team itself is super interesting. It's pretty top heavy, which I tend to like. However, there are some issues that I'm noticing right off the bat. No Stealth Rocks is pretty unforgivable in draft. Can't really get around it. Obviously, you have good spike setting with Hammer Rot, and then premium T spikes with Toxapex. Don't hate Levany for a webs option, but no spikes is going to take, or no Stealth Rock is going to take a few points off, in my mind at least.
Yeah, no,
Um,
no Rocker's crazy.
it is crazy. Triple Electric, super weird. Not a
Why?
huge fan.
Why is Boltund here?
No clue. And then the other thing that's absolutely insane is how many physical attackers they're on. Um, their entire top end is just physical attackers.
I mean, Zera Aura can be a special attacker.
It can. That's true.
But yeah,
I'm still bringing Rocky Helmet every week.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, your highest special attack in the entire team is Zera Aura, which is sad. Uh,
Right. On the plus side, lots of electric types means a pretty fast team. Their
yeah,
speed tiers kind of look great, honestly. Um,
I'm still. Why? Why is there a Boltund on this team?
I don't know. The other thing is this team loves electric terrain, right? You have Iron Boulder, you have Raichu Alola. You don't really have a way to set it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure one of these Mons can set it manually, probably. But
I mean,
what are you doing?
I know at least all the Iron Mons can, and Raichu Alola can technically.
Looks like either Boulder can't or my sheet's wrong. Either is very possible.
Boulder can't.
Um,
All the other ones can. That's crazy if Boulder
I
can't.
would assume it can. I think Boulder's moveset's not in here.
Yeah, that might be it.
Which also means they might have Stealth Rocks on Boulder. I'm not
Boulder
100%.
does
I
not
don't
have
think
Stealth
Boulder's a
Rocks.
reliable rocker,
I
though.
know Boulder doesn't have Stealth Rocks. I know that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Looks like all of their electric types can manually set terrain, but I'm still just like not a huge fan. I do really like Toxapex, but it's kind of their only defensive one. Toxapex and Incineroar actually has a nice little defensive core, but obviously Incineroar doesn't have recovery. And then,
Uh, does Silvally get Wish? No, Silvally doesn't get
no,
Wish.
Raichu Alola is the only Wishmon, and it has no HP.
Yeah, that's not a real thing.
So, yeah, Incineroar's never healing. Both of their Terra Captains are pretty low tier, which is definitely a safe way of going about it. You don't spend very many points, but I don't think I'm a huge fan. I do like Silvally and Oricorio together. It gives you a lot of type versatility. But yeah.
Yeah,
Those are
I
like
mean,
huge ground.
I'm not a big fan of a lack of a flyer or a real ground resist. Um,
Yeah, you basically have Oricorio and then like maybe Silvally.
yeah, so Silvally can only run one of Terra Flying, Terra Ground, and Terra Steel. You can only run, I mean, not Terra, of it can only be
The
one of those
systems,
three
yeah.
types. And he has,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really counting Oricorio as a real flying type because it's a Terramon that's just going to Terra.
Yeah,
So he basically does not have a flying, a steel, or a ground type, which I think are, if you don't have a levitating Mon, which he does not, are three required types in Draft League.
right. I also really hate to see. So obviously, all the electric types are weak to ground. Can't do much about that.
Yeah.
Iron Boulder, another big spend, also weak to ground. But then both defensive Mons,
Are weak
Toxapex
to
and
ground. Yeah.
Incineroar, are also weak to ground. So I definitely am a little scared for them on that front.
I mean,
But
Silvally,
overall, I think the team can work.
you're gonna have to bring Silvally defensively almost every week, I feel like.
I mean, you're basically already having to do that for Defog, which is the
Yeah.
other major issue here. I don't love either Defogger, and there's no spinner.
Yep.
So
On the
definitely
on the
a risky
positive
team.
on the positive end, we've got good pivots into our top end breakers.
Mm-hmm.
Silvally and Cineroar.
Yeah,
Um,
great pivots.
I guess Boltund is technically a pivot.
Yeah, tons of volt switch, tons of U-turn, parting shot.
Yeah.
Good setup potential. Almost all these mons can set up pretty effectively.
True.
And I mean, there's always a chance you just get up like Darmanitan with spikes and you just kind of go from there. Like, there are options for sure. So I think overall, I would be kind of low on this team. I think if I were to do like a letter grade, it would probably be like a C. But it's definitely pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna agree with that. Um,
All right.
I think without Silvally, this team is an F though, and that's a problem.
I do think Savali is putting in some major work.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next team. We have the Birmingham Rapidash, coached by DJ, which is one of our new coaches, I believe. Let me get that in correctly. And the Terra captains are great, actually. Big fan of those. We have Jolteon and DPD. So, all right, what are we looking at here? Right off the bat, great hazard setting, big fan. Deoxys speed is a premium hazard setter. Obviously, you're fast enough, you aren't super worried about taunt. You can taunt their setters. Great lead overall. Avalugg I don't think comes super often, but it does have rocks. And then Metagross can always get up rocks pretty reliably. So I think that front is pretty good. That being said, hazard removal is a little bit iffy to me, right? You have Volcarona with Defog and Avalugg with Rapid Spin, and that is about it. What are some of your general thoughts on this one?
I mean, honestly, I think Volcarona is underrated in Draft League as a defensive mon. I think people try to bring
Definitely.
I think people try to bring the Quiver Dance set, and that's what everyone is prepping for. And I think Volcarona can come as your bulky Willow Defogmon, U-turn even. And I think it can fulfill that role very well. And I think it does it pretty well on this team specifically as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it can come as that Quiver Dance sweeper in a matchup and just do work. But I think I think as a defogger, Volcarona is underrated in general.
Okay.
Um, And I think in those matchups where you need the spinner, I don't think Avalugg is an unbringable mon by any means. I think Avalugg is. I mean, it's a
Definitely
defensive
has its
ice.
moments.
It's a defensive ice type, but it has sturdy. It can get off a spin if it needs to, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think Deoxys Speed is a premium mon in this format. I think it does a lot. It's very versatile. It can be that hazard
Yeah.
setter, but it can be a meteor beam sweeper if it needs to be. I love meteor
Right.
beam DX's speed. Um,
It's goofy for sure. What
defensively,
else are we looking at?
defensively, I think your Firewater Grass core is insane.
Great call. Yep. I agree with that. I
uh,
also think that having Indeedee, both as a Terra captain and as a Psychic Terrain setter, makes the Deoxys speed like even more valuable. There's some good synergy there.
for
Um,
sure.
you have your fast mons. You have a lot of bulkier, slower mons, but the tiers are pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not completely sold on Arbok specifically, but it's their low point mon. Like, I'm not going to get too caught up on it.
It's a grounded poison, can set toxic
Yeah, they
spikes.
already had Mega Venusaur for grounded poison.
Oh, well, it's a poison that can actually set toxic spikes because Venusaur can't.
It is a toxic spikes option. You can punish other teams without a grounded poison. I'm Mimikyu's biggest hater, but I think we pointed it low enough that it's probably fine. They did need a fairy, so like
I
fair
don't
enough.
love it as the fairy on the team. Um,
Yeah,
I just don't really
I will
see. I
say,
just don't really see where you're bringing the Mimikyu as a dragon check, right?
I think you're probably not. I think you probably just either like eat a hit from the dragon and revenge kill it, or like I don't know. You got options.
Yeah.
It's a little tough for sure. Honestly, I think
Um.
Metagross is probably the real dragon check.
Yeah. Well, good luck against a Garchomp, I guess.
Yeah, I mean Garchomp and Hydreigon are gonna eat your lunch for sure. Another ground weak team. Also no Dark Resist because Mimikyu's the fairy,
Ooh.
and
No dark.
Metagross is
No
yeah.
dark resist at all is rough. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say the type chart leaves a little to be desired, but I'm a big fan of almost everything else, really.
Terra fighting Indeedee is your dark resist.
Unironically, not the worst option.
And Terra fighting Indeedee is pretty good. That's why I said it.
Yeah, no, I'm a
Uh.
big fan of their Terra captains. I think they have some immediate threats. Obviously, their setup potential is crazy with Volcarona and Ursaluna Bloodmoon too. Can get out of control if you let it calm mind.
Yeah. And Deoxys speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they actually have like a really good amount of priority, which isn't necessarily as essential because they have Psychic Terrain. I'd give this team an A. I think it's solid.
Oh, where's the physical attack?
So that's kind of the thing. Deoxys speed actually is usually mixed, so you're getting some in there.
Sure.
Metagross, obviously, and then from there it's a little tough. So I do
Yeah.
think Assault Vest does kind of own this team, but it's not that bad.
I just kind of think like Mons that would typically invest in defense these big spadef bulky walls are not gonna bother to do that here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which might come into issue if you're facing against like Araquanid, for example.
That would be an interesting scenario. Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Or like any sort of like typically spadef wall that has to invest in Fizdef,
Mm-hmm.
I think becomes a problem here.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I think with a hazard game, I think I'd give this team a B plus. I don't think I can quite give it an A because of the lack of immediate breakers on the physical side.
I think
Um,
that's fair. I'd probably give it an A minus.
yeah, I mean I think we're around the same place, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, I think we can move on from here.
Sure. Let me pull in the next team. Captains are here and here. And what didn't import, right? Oh, Mawile, that's fine. Fix that. Mega Mawile. Yeah. So this is the Fort Bellis
I
Grottles.
assume
It's
this team does not
Seahawks
also does
team.
this team also have an Arbok or
It totally doesn't. Just whoops.
the Arbok does not exist, everybody.
No, sure doesn't. It's a 10-mon team. Nothing against that. Um,
No, totally fine.
looking pretty superb in terms of hazard setting. Um, I like a lot of their top end mons. I do think Double Dragon's a little weird here, but they do very different things. What else?
I don't think Double Dragon is weird here. I think they're one, they're playing very different roles. Number two,
Mhm.
the only weakness they share is Dragon.
Oh, true. Yeah,
I
actually.
think that's the only weakness they share.
Yeah, because one's weak to ground, that's ground and
Yeah,
dragon, and the other one's immune to ground. Yeah. No, actually, they cover each other pretty well.
and in terms of dragons, this team got a Mega Mawile, you got a Primarina, you got a Fortress. You're doing fine.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, they great defensive team. Honestly, as far as the type chart specifically is concerned,
yeah.
there's no specific type that stands out as a problem, and that's pretty rare. I do think also,
Yeah.
not to toot my own horn, but I did help them plan part of this draft. I think gouging fire with grassy surge is absurd because then earthquake is not hitting any of these ground weak mons as hard.
Does
It helps Mega
Gouging
Mawile and Muckalola as well.
does Gouging Fire not run Earthquake usually though?
So it can, but it doesn't have to. So it really depends on the matchup, what they have, and I believe it does get Stomping Tantrum or some other ground move as an alternative.
I see.
You also don't have to bring Rillaboom, or you can I'd play around it. I mean, you're the one setting the terrain.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think grassy terrain works great for the rest of this team, right?
Yeah, a lot of these mons love it.
I don't love the Hippowdon Stoutland part of this team. Um,
Yeah, I'm not huge
I
on
think
it.
I think I,
I
I I think if you're drafting Hippowdon, you want something better as a sand sort of abuser. Otherwise, it feels like a big momentum sink as your ground type.
Yeah, it's a big spend too if you aren't really capitalizing on the ability.
And I just don't think Stoutland is like the thing you need to make Hippowdon a real good use of your points or your team composition.
I agree. I do think a lot of these mons really like webs, so I like Galvantula a lot here.
I do too.
I think I would probably literally just change Hippowdon to Stoutland. So a pretty minor criticism.
Yeah, I would drop Hippowdon for a different ground and just,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
totally.
yeah.
This seems like a little heavy on physical attackers, but it's not terrible. I mean, you have Latias, obviously. You can't really not bring special defense when there's a Latias. And then
Yeah,
Primarine and Galvantula also are doing
yeah,
some.
for sure. I would say other than Stoutland and Hippowdon being lackluster, my biggest issue would be that Latias is your top end speed. Um,
Yeah, so that is a big concern of mine as well. And not only is the team pretty slow, but the tiers are pretty spaced out. So you have a giant jump from 108 to 91, and then you have another huge jump from 80 to 60. So there's a lot of abusable speed tiers in there. I think this team almost relies on webs, which might be a problem if the other team has good removal.
yeah. In terms of priority, is it just Glassy Glide and I guess Sucker
So
Punch,
you have
Mega
Grassy
Mawile?
Glide, Mega Mawile gets Sucker Punch, and then I believe Muckalola gets Shadow Sneak. But Grassy Glide's the only stab priority, yeah.
Okay.
And Grass is not the best type offensively.
No,
I
it's not.
will say you do have a few good Scarfers. Like Latias loves Scarf. Rillaboom with the Scarf is pretty real. So you have options, but
Scarf Galvantula is underrated.
true. No, I rock with that. I will say I think it does hurt that Mega Mawile can't hold an item. This is a pretty obvious observation, but on this team especially, you really want to give it a Scarf some of the time.
Does Ma get is Mawile even in the game? Am I waffling right now? Mawile's not even in Gen 9, is it?
In Gen 9 now.
So it doesn't get Trailblazed then. Uh,
No, it doesn't, unfortunately. I know Mega and Metachamp did, and that's kind of huge for it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real speed setup here besides D-Dance on Gouging Fire.
Claudius gets agility. Um,
Oh, sure, actually. Yeah.
yeah.
I do love,
And then I mean
like, setup
you do
Claudius.
have Sandrush Stoutland. It is something you technically have.
Sure, but even after Sandrush, it's still slower than their Scarfer.
Yeah, true.
I guess most of the time. It depends, but it's a whole thing. But yeah, I think this seems pretty sweet overall. I actually like it a lot. I don't think it has any like super glaring issues. I think it's one of the better constructed teams we've seen so far.
I think of the three we've seen, it would be my favorite, and I think I'd give it an A minus.
I think I'd give it an A.
There you go.
Next, we have the Los Angeles Slow Kings. So this is Conrad's team, and it's doing a lot. It has a lot of different things going on, and I can't tell at a glance if I like it or not. So let's dive into it.
I
We
see
have a
three
Terra Skeletor
unknowns.
and a Terra Petulant. And yeah, so type null needs to be with a colon. Mime Galar needs a hyphen, and Mega Alakazam Nailed it. Okay. So what the hell's going on here? We have a pretty top-heavy start with Valiant and Alakazam. I'm kind of surprised that one drafter got both of those. But I think in Johto somebody did as well, or very similarly got a lot of top mons. So definitely something that's going around. The hazard setting seems good to me. The hazard removal is probably the best we've seen so far. Big fan of Rotom Wash as a defogger.
Yep, and
And Don
Donphan
as a spinner.
prime. Yep. It's prime. Rapid spinner. Amazing rapid spinner.
I don't know that it is nowadays. It's very good for its points. But
That's what I
compared
mean.
to like a Great Buster
Obviously,
and
it's not the
Iron
best
Fed,
rapid spinner in the game, but I'm saying it's like
yeah.
it's a very reliable spinner, is what I mean.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
The type chart is kind of unreadable. There's so many different mons with like random immunities or like mons that aren't really coming very often, so the type chart for it doesn't really matter. So I'm not going to put too much stock into that. But you do have every type represented, which is very nice for bringing relevant stats.
I'll put stock in the Ghost Resist being Type Null and Honchkrow.
Yeah, but you also are Terra-ing either Skeledirge or Petrarunt out of the weakness and possibly into a resist.
That's fair.
So I don't know. What else? What else is going on here? You got great pivots. Well, mostly just Rotom, but like that's kind of enough. Good setup, obviously.
Rotom and Petrarunt.
Not a ton of utility.
I would say that Rotom and Petrarunt as your pivots is not enough, to be honest. I think if you're going into your two, your team is built around getting in Iron Valiant and Mega Alakazam, and neither of those mons want to be coming in hard. So I think you want a teleporter.
True.
I think you want more slow pivots, and
Yeah.
I mean Type Null and Honchkrow are there, and Type. I'm not saying either mon is unbringable, but I think you want more reliable slow U-turners than just Petrarunt and Rotom Wash, which are both not particularly slow.
I agree with that entirely. I also feel like this team is very reliant on its top six. I don't foresee a ton of matches where you don't bring at least 5 of those. So you're kind of they can pretty much just read the matchup, right? And bring
Mega Alakazam, Iron Valiant, Rotom Wash, Skeledirge are coming to every match.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's a match where Rotom Wash doesn't come, but in general, they're coming to almost every match. So
yeah,
your like slots for versatility are kind of limited.
Right. I think this draft is hurt by having 12 mons.
I agree.
Yeah. The speed tiers also hurt me a little bit. They're not huge gaps, but there are some. And then Mega Alakazam's like the only real like super fast mon. Obviously, Booster Iron Valiant can get up there too, though. So I'm not super worried about it. I will say, if you take out the mons that I don't believe in, like Mr. Mime, for example, the speed tiers get a lot worse. So, like, if Mr. Mime doesn't come, there's a giant gap between Petrarunt and Valiant.
If you take out Mr. Mime, then you take out Honchkrow. Yikes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the team overall is kind of at the two extreme ends of the speed tiers. Not exactly what you want to see. I do think there are going to be games that, like, okay, they try to set up, Mr. Mime gets stopped but takes out a couple mons, Iron Valiant does the same thing, and now Skeletor sets up and there's nothing can stop it. Like, there's definitely a lot of threats. And if you aren't able to preserve your threat checks for all of them, you could just get screwed. So I do think the team could work.
I mean, I don't think it's savable or anything. It definitely has its strong suits. Rotom Wash, Skeledirge, Petrarunt as a defensive core is strong.
Agree.
I wish you had another. I mean, I guess Honchkrow technically has 125 attack and access to the move Sucker Punch, but I just don't think there's much in prepping for a real breaker like in outside of Valiant and Mega Alakazam, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Um, I think this team can do some cheeky stuff offensively with like Nasty Plot Pecharunt and set up Rotom Wash.
Sure.
Um, but
I
I
think the
think
Terra captains are too passive.
Skeletor's and Pecharunt both being Terra Captains, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think either mon is passive in itself, but I think that you have both doing similar roles, and if you
Hmm.
then make them both your Terramons, it's kind of like, why are you terroring both these things when they could both check the same thing with only one of them being terrored?
Sure. I will say Iron Valiant does actually get Vacuum Wave. Obviously, you have to be special, and it's not hitting that hard, and you're probably faster than them anyways. But if you really need it to stop like a setup sweep, it is there.
Yeah, you got unaware Skeletors, so.
Sure, yeah. Unaware, I think, helps the team a lot. Solves a lot of this team's issues.
But Hazard Game is there. I
Yeah,
wish you had more facilitators for Valiant and Mega Alakazam.
yeah, I agree. I'm with that.
So, I mean,
Overall,
I
it's
think I'd give
decent.
this team a B minus, maybe C plus.
Sure, I was thinking about a B.
Probably a B minus. Probably a B minus because I think the top end is there.
Sure,
Yeah.
cool. Next up, we have the Marowaks? Probably butchered that. By Watts. So we got kind of some Heat Terra captains, actually. Big fan
Estermine,
of
Valar, and Shuckle.
those. Yeah. So this is a 10-mon draft. You've got kind of an absurd top end. Dragapult and Great Tusk going in. You have Heatran, which is a great mon, does a lot of things. Dracovish, obviously a huge breaker with Terra, very scary. You got Slowbro as a great wall that can also slow pivot. Tinkaton brings a lot to the table. I don't know that you necessarily want it over a different fairy, but there's like a good chance it was all that was left. Swellow, obviously another great Terra captain, very good at just Terraing into a stab and going in. And then you got Rotom Frost, Grafaiai, and Ariados to round things out. And yeah, it's pretty neat. I think I like this one.
I think I like this team too. I think this team needs to rely very heavily on either fast offensive gameplay or very niche versatile sets that you wouldn't normally see. But I think both are valid ways to play this team.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I mean, Terra Water Dracovish might be the scariest thing to ever play against ever.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a chump check. If you don't have like really, really solid resist or priority, you might just get killed.
um, and then
Yeah,
yeah, you got the web support for Dracovish. It might be an Ariados, but it's
love
there.
webs.
But
Right.
it's
I mean,
there.
it's not like you bring it in every game, but when you need it,
Yeah,
get up some webs, get up some T spikes. I don't hate it.
you got the
The
best.
removal
Oh,
is
yeah.
carried by Great Tusk, but also good.
Removal carried by the best
uh,
rapid spinner in the game sounds fine to me. Uh,
exactly. You had great pivots, honestly. I mean, Slowbro, obviously one of the best, and then Grafia Parting Shot is kind of nice.
yep.
You got a few other options in there.
And then
Um,
you got the best Pokemon in all of Draft League. You got the best Rabbit Spinner of all in Draft League, and you got the best Pokemon in all of Draft League. Uh,
yeah, pretty much. Kind of an insane top few mons.
Dragapult
The speed
versatility
tiers
is
look great,
unmatched.
honestly. There's like a bit of a gap between Grafia and Tinkaton, but I don't really care because the rest
110
is
to
fast
90,
enough.
110 to 94 is fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously Dracovish pretty slow, but you got Webs, you got Scarf, like you have options.
Yeah.
Priority is pretty much non-existent. You have Shadow Sneak from Ariados, Sucker Punch from Dragapult.
Yeah.
And then obviously Grafia, but Prankster is not priority for what we're talking about.
Not the point of priority, no.
Exactly.
Does Grafia
But I think you're
Thunderwave?
fine. I don't think so.
That would be pretty good if Grafia got Thunderwave. Thunderwaving things to be slower than Dracovish.
Yeah, I could see that. I do wonder if this team wouldn't
Tinkaton and
prefer.
Slowbro both get Thunderwave, so you do have T-Wave support.
Yeah, Rotom can too. You definitely
Yeah.
have options. I do wonder if this team wouldn't prefer like a Grimmsnarl or something instead of Tinkaton or Grafia.
I think
Like,
Grimmsnarl would be better than Tinkaton for sure.
I don't even know if it's available. I'm just spitballing.
It's also a lot
But
more. I think it's also significantly more in terms of pricing.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this team a lot. I think this is a really good team, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, facilitators for the offense are there. Offensive breakers are there.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive sweeping out potential is there. Um,
Yep.
Slowbro Heatran is a pretty crazy defensive core.
Yeah.
This team doesn't like Crocodile, but otherwise.
Yeah, that's pretty true. But like, what are you gonna do? It's 1-1.
And it's also you have a great Tusk, which can check it okay. Uh,
Oh, sure. Or just like Scarf Dracovish it to death. Like you got options.
yeah, for sure. Like I guess my point is defensive core being just two mons can have issues. That was the basic point of what I said, Crocodile.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Totally.
Great Tusk can have defensive utility. Tinkaton can play defensively. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you've got options. I definitely think this is the strongest team we've seen so far.
Yeah. Solid A+.
I gotta agree. I think A+.
Cool. Next up, we have the Sacramento Spidops, coached by Dorito. And let's see, Shocks, and there we go. Boom, bang. Yeah, so this is the team. Right off the bat, I'm seeing a lot that I like. Let's see. All right, one thing at a time. Hazards, really good. Removal, also quite good. You have 3 very bringable mons. Some of the best pivots in the game. You have Shocks and Aleki for Volting. You have Scissor for a huge U-turn. And then Chili
Invoking.
Reception, obviously right here.
Imagine Regieleki got Weather Ball.
That would be very funny.
If Regieleki got Weather Ball, it might become like a 15-point mod just because of its utility with Slowking.
Yeah.
And I guess on Raid.
I can see that.
Anyways, that was a tangent for no reason.
Sure.
Let's see.
I
Yeah,
think the Pyro Captains are decent. I think you've got the immediate physical and special threats.
I would
Obviously, you
tear
have setup potential.
the Blastoise over the Enam, no? I think you want to keep Fairy flying
Mm,
on a mon like Enam
I don't
too.
know. Enim has some crazy setup potential with Terra.
Yeah. I guess
I've seen it work. I
my
don't think
thought
it's
was
super reliable.
Blastoise also has some crazy setup potential with Thera.
True. Yeah, you do have Shell Smash sets. What else? I think this team's a little slow overall. And there are some pretty jarring gaps in the speed tiers, notably 125 to 110. But you have D-Dance, you have Photosynthesis, you have ways to be faster. Good hazard spreading with Slowking mostly. Not sure you super need the webs mode.
I mean, it's a Spy Ops. You can't really complain. Like,
Fair.
it's the lower end. I think like he just saw it as like, hey, I can have this if I need to for like a banded Baxcalibur and SD Baxcalibur.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Um, in terms of the type chart, very rock weak,
Yeah,
but like I don't know if I were to choose a type to be weak to, rock would be up there.
I would agree. I will say there's a lot of types that are doubled up on and a lot of types not had. So
Yeah,
if you need like a meaningful stab of a certain type, it's a little tough. Obviously, you have Terra, and I think both of these Terra captains get Terra Blast. Don't quote me on that.
they do. They
But
do both get Terra Blast.
it's definitely interesting. But yeah, overall, I'm a pretty big believer. I do
Yeah,
think
no offensive
this
fighting
team
with
kind of wants a fighting type.
no offensive fighting with Darkrai is kind of weird to me. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of what I was thinking.
I don't know. I think like a Mian Shao would do work for this team.
Great Mon. Definitely agree. Don't know where you would make room for it, but it could be
No, I
good.
don't know how either, but
Um, I do think this team has a very, very real screens mode. You can get up screens with like a Lecky or Sandy Shocks, and then
yeah.
just absolutely go in.
I don't know. I think the way I might make room for a fighting would be cutting a Lecky, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
I think 125 is a fine top end speed tier. Blastoise is a great spinner. You have Sandy Shocks as a Volt Switch as a screen setter. But like this is a small thing that I'm just pointing out. Like I think the team is pretty strong overall.
Yeah, I agree completely. I would give this an A.
Yeah. I mean it's got my baby Glow King with a nice type. It's hard for me not to give it an A.
Big fan of that synergy.
I think I'd give it an I think I'd give it an A minus though, because I think it could deal with some it could really use some an offensive fighting or fire to deal with steel types because it has neither of those right
Sure.
now.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. Seems like my grades are consistently just like one notch above yours,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. So moving on to the San Antonio Toros, which is H Nard's team, and ooh boy, is there some heat here.
Goldango and no spikes make me sad.
I agree. I think no spikes at all, especially no T spikes, with Dengo is kind of a missed opportunity, especially when you're terroring it. But I do love Goldengo's ability to keep up all the rocks that this team can set
Yeah, for
and the
sure.
webs. I think speed wise, this team leaves a lot to be desired. It's very bulky, very slow. Obviously, you have great priority in Palafin, great setup in Roaring Moon. You could honestly probably bring Agility Corviknight here.
Yeah, maybe solid Scarfers and Goldango and Rotom Heat.
Yeah, those mons love to be Scarf. They can trick it off. I think Trick Scarf is like underrated utility in draft.
For sure, for sure.
Removal looks great. Tons of good defoggers. You got a spinner, which is nice, especially if you're trying to hazard stack, which you like almost are. I think my main criticism here is there's not just like a one cohesive game plan. Um,
Yeah.
you have like a little bit of hazard stack, a little bit of stall, a little bit of like bulky
Yeah,
offense, and obviously
the
those go together, but not the
Corviknight
way I would want them to.
Corviknight Clefable a la Mamola is a great defensive core, but it plays like stall.
Yeah,
Which is fine, but a little weird for a team that's trying to close out the game with Roaring Moon and Palafin almost every game.
Agreed. I could definitely see a world where you're like chipping them down and then just jet punching them to death, but like you would want spikes for that.
Yeah, I think this team needs more bulky offense. I think the bulk on this team is, I mean, Corviknight can run offensive sets. It's not incapable of it. So can Clefable, but I think
Yeah,
going further into like a bulky mon that can break things, something like a Heatran, or like it's
would
off the
love
board,
a
but I'm just
big
I'm
bulky switch
spitballing
after. Yep.
things like these bulky mons that can break things. Goldango is a good example actually, but I think you want more of mons like a Goldango and less of a Corviknight.
I agree. I would completely agree with that. I think this team. I don't know. I think it's spinning too many plates. The type chart's really funny. Check the ground.
That is funny.
So we are looking at 4 ground immunities with only 2 weaknesses, one of which is a Terra Captain and the other of which is not coming very often. So good luck using Earthquake.
I do think Corviknight plus Alolan Golem is pretty funny. You can't lock my Corviknight. I have a magnet pull.
Oh my god, I love Alolan Golem in draft. Just bring it to the Corviknight Skarmory Celesteela weeks. Ooh boy.
Couldn't you
It's a
just
very
like
goofy guy.
draft a Magnezone though?
Oh yeah, or even Magneton probably does that role better.
It it almost certainly does it better, yeah. But Alola Golem's funny.
It's also cheaper. Like there's reasons to draft it
Yeah, Explosion
for
Sturdy
sure.
is also a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a neat team. I'm not a huge believer in it, but I don't think it's bad either.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think probably just a solid like B minus for
I
me.
think not having spikes, the speed tiers, and then the weird team coercion is really
What do you
getting to
think?
me. Did you hear that?
No.
Okay, I could tell you weren't hearing me. I was saying the speed tiers plus the lack of a solid like game plan to finish the game with a 2 high end breakers
Yeah.
is really getting to me. I think I gotta give this team a C, to be honest.
Okay. Sure. Let's go ahead and move on to the Sydney Piplups. So this is I'm Stupid, It's True's team, which is always a name that I feel mean reading.
Do
And
I
the Terra
see a
Captains are...
Sneasler Lele?
Yeah, so, okay. Holy shit, this is a crazy hyper-offensive team that also has good defense.
Wait. This person took my draft philosophy. I see a Slowking Arctozolt and a Sneasler Lele.
Yes, you have 2 very optional, very strong pairs. You can also do gross stuff like ripping Slowking future sites in Psychic terrain. I do think you have too many Psychic types here.
I think
The Dark
Star.
weakness is glaring.
I think Starmie was a little was one step too far in terms of the psychics.
You're rocking no Ghost Resist. I think the Terra Captains are pretty misguided.
was so desperate to get to get a rapid spinner that he doubled up on water psychic.
Yes.
I think Starmie is actively detracting from this team.
I would agree. And you already have Starmie for Defog.
Yeah, and Flygon, and Driftbloom.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, so here's my read. I think Starmie and Driftblim should just be different mons entirely. You're rocking 5 ghost weaknesses. And I don't think that's good.
I don't know.
And then I think if you
I love Unburdened Terra Driftbloom. It's so funny.
It's pretty fun. I like Flygon as a Terra Captain. I would Terra like Blacephalon probably out of the other Mons. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
I did on my team.
Yeah, probably.
I also think like Scarf Blacephalon in Psychic Terrain, very scary. What are you gonna do about it? But yeah, team's super good. Insane synergy. Great hazards, great removal, great setup. A little lacking in pivots. You have a couple of Mons that can U-turn, you can flip turn on Starmie, but I would love to see more. Obviously Slowking, the best pivot.
Yeah.
But I guess you do have chilly reception. Can't hate it.
I genuinely think if you drop Starmie and grab a dark type, then this team becomes.
Oh boy, I can't hear you again.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Hey.
I was saying, if you drop Starmie and grab a dark type that has a secondary typing that is helpful to your team, I'm trying to think specifics here. What are we weak to? You grab a dark fighting type actually, and this team goes pretty crazy.
I like that. Yeah. I think the speed tier is really good. Sneasler is your top end, but it has Unburdened, so like it goes very fast.
Yep.
Not a ton of in the way of priority, but obviously you're a Psychic Terrain team, so I don't care.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I actually really like this team. I just think they went a little too hard on the dark weakness and
if they
weakness.
dropped if Starmie wasn't on this team and they had a dark type, I think I'd give this team an S.
Yeah, I agree. I think as is, you're still probably pushing like an A or an A minus.
I think I'm gonna give it an A minus. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Very cool team though. Excited to see how it does.
I love this team because it looks like I drafted it.
That is a classic. So this next one is another 12 Mon team. Don't see a ton of those.
Wait, hold up. Can we pause for a sec?
Sure.
Okay, resumed. All right, what team are we looking at, Koda?
So we have the Sydney Sligoos, coached by Holy Ron Ha. At least I'm assuming that's supposed to be. Yeah, that's good enough. And this is a weird one to me. Not seeing a lot of obvious synergy.
It looks like this guy was trying to draft Sun and then didn't.
You know what I think this is?
What?
I think this is manual weather using Tornadus to set whatever weather you need. So you could do sun for weight. You can do sand for Zolt. You can do rain for Overquill. I think that might be it. Yeah, because like sun for Leafeon. I think that's the plan. Yeah.
And sun for Entei, I guess. Yeah.
Sure, why not? I think that's what we're looking at. It's like a triple weather team with no ability setters. Which is interesting. It does kind of make sense to go 12 Mons when you're trying to get a bunch of like cheap Mons that abuse different weathers. So I don't hate that. The hazard setting is really good. The hazard removal is perfectly serviceable. I think Quackable can just win games. Seems good. Pivots are fine. You have some fast, immediate threats. The speed tiers are good. I would say the top end is a little slower than I would like, but overall it's pretty solid.
115, 111, 110, 109 is really weird.
Yeah, I agree. I would love for one of those mons to be like 120 or faster,
Yeah,
but I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. I just think this
The
team
type
la-
charts
I just think this team
also a little bit
lacks
of things.
synergy, man.
I think that if you bring Tornadus and use Sunny Day, you're probably punting. But I could be wrong.
It could do something, right? And that does seem to be what the team is going for. I agree. But I don't know. I I think you're lacking in synergy, and then I think your defensive mons here are momentum sinks.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that like none of the weather abusers are actually all that scary to me. Like
Terra
Walking Make's
Drake,
pretty good.
Terra Drake is probably the scariest one. Um,
Yes, that also is fair.
I think Walking Wake is a trap if you don't have Sun, to be honest, and I don't think Manual Sun
Yeah,
counts.
no, definitely. Sure.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess we understand what he's going for, so there's at least something to it. Because if there was nothing to it, we
Yeah, we
wouldn't even
figured it
catch
out.
what he was going for. Um,
Right.
so like I think there's a use to the team. I don't think it's
Yeah.
unbelievably bad or anything. Um, I just don't see the games going how he would plan them out consistently.
That's kind of my thinking as well. I think you can come up with a really sick game plan for any given matchup, and then
Yeah,
it probably won't happen.
right. Because coming up with those turns to set the weather every game is not realistic.
It's really tough,
Yeah.
especially on such a frail typing. Like if they have an ice or a rock move,
Yeah,
ooh boy.
Why is Azelf Terra over Tornadoes?
That is a really good question. I think Azelf is a great utility mon, and I don't think Terra gives it any more utility.
I agree. Um,
But yeah, C minus. Not my favorite team.
yeah, I think I'm gonna give you the same score, C minus.
Cool. Next up, we have the Losing Lillipups by Sneaky Pliskino? I don't know. Something like that. Probably should have read these names ahead of time. It's good enough. And they have Terra Bronzong
It
and
fits in
Terra
with
Electro.
GNDL content, bruh. The editing is minimal to say the least.
Oh, for sure. All right. So this is a team. It has so many good hazard setters. It has pretty good removal.
How do you have four spikers? How does a team draft four mons with spikes?
I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. The answer is just so many ice weaknesses.
There is so many ice weaknesses.
I don't love having two 4Xs to ice and no like quad resist or one of those being able to Terra or anything like that. But it might be fine.
I mean, you got
Hard
a
to say.
bronze song.
Bronzong's definitely putting in some work here, which
Yeah.
is not really what I expected. Obviously, Chiyu's a great wall breaker. You have good setup
Terra
potential.
Bronzong is
Um,
wild to me.
yeah, I don't love that. I feel like its typing is kind of perfect with its abilities.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can Terra out of the psychic type and just be steel.
That is funny.
You can get rid of your broken
Um,
ghost weakness, I guess.
yeah, you had a few good pivots. I feel like Screamtail and Vaporeon do almost the same thing.
Interesting. I don't know. I think Vaporeon is the water you need. They have different typings, but I do think their role is kind of similar. Um,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I also think Gliscor and Glamora weirdly also do very similar things.
nah, you are sleeping on Glabora, bruh. You know how I feel about
Okay,
that.
true. True. You have run Gliscor Glamora before, right?
I have, and you know how many times I brought Hazard Setter Glabora to that season? Very, very few.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Scarf Glamora is the truth. Rock Polish Glamora is the truth. Um, Even Specs Glamora is the truth. It's a real mon, bruh.
Gotcha.
I think on this team, Garchomp might be your hazard setter most of the time. That might be a crazy take, but
I don't hate it. I don't know. It really just depends, right? You got
right. I mean,
options, which is
obviously, it's
nice.
it's the matchup for sure. Depends on the matchup for sure.
Yeah. This year gonna lose
I
me in the
almost
lower
I almost think
tiers.
this overcommitting to hazards is just gonna pull out all of the heavy duty boots, and your knockoff users are Gliscor, Hitmontop, and Sableye. Is that it?
Uh, I don't think Hitmontop gets knock. I think it's just Gliscor
Oh,
Sableye.
yikes! Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that then.
Right.
Because
No, I think this team needs a knocker.
I think a lot of your game relies on the hazards being effective, and I think people are going to be running 4 or 5 boots mods. Just will.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can agree with that. Let's see.
I also
The
think your
tiers
team
are
needs
pretty good.
I think your team needs a better rapid spinner than Hitmontop. You're this reliant on
Uh,
hazards.
yeah, that's true. If you're setting that many hazards, you do want a better spinner. No, you're right.
Like Hitmontop is passable, but I think you want something better on this particular build.
Yep, I agree with that.
Speed cheers are
Yeah,
actually, if you look at actual bringable monsters, speed cheers are pretty bad. Um,
interesting. Oh wait, yeah, no, it's getting propped up by like Wug Trio and
so Screamtail is
Delibird.
a good mon, right? But I'm never trying to outspeed a Screamtail personally.
Yeah,
So like Electro Hisui to Garchomp is essentially the fall off,
yeah.
and that's not good. Um, but I mean, it's a lot of like pinching at straws because the team is very solid overall. It's got a good defensive core, even if there's some role misuse.
Yeah. Mm.
I think I think Terra Electro Hisui is very good, especially on this team that
Yeah.
needs that high end speed.
Yep.
I think Bronzong does work on this team. I don't think it needs to Terra, but
Mhm.
I mean I don't really know what else you Terra. Garchomp and Chiyu are both too high, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Um,
I would Terra Glamora, but that's just me.
I don't hate that. I also don't hate like Terra Gliscor.
I think Terra Gliscor is lame, but yeah, that's probably the correct choice.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, good team. I would give it like probably an A minus, but it's definitely up there. Maybe even just an A.
I think I'd give it an A minus. I think it has a couple of roll compression issues, and it needs a knocker.
Yeah,
But
true.
yeah,
Yeah, A minus, no knock. Well, no good knock. Moving on, we have the Twin City Tentacruels, coached by Rat Egg Roland.
someone dare this person
This
to draft Oops All Terrain. Um,
this is just all terrain, and I don't like that.
I don't either. Um,
Honestly, okay, let's go into it. Let's see what's wrong. Hazard setting, not my favorite. You have like one real rocker, no spikes.
you don't
Everything else is
believe in
fine.
you don't believe in Stealth Rock Monferno?
No, not even a little.
No,
What
I'm
else?
kidding. By the way,
Hazard
Monferno,
removal
if Monferno comes to a game, I will be shocked.
for real. I think the hazard removal is great. Got no complaints there.
Yep.
The pivoting is obviously great. You get a lot of synergy, probably too much. You're pretty reliant on bringing Coco every game.
I mean, that's fine. You should bring Coco every game, but it's more about you're reliant on the terrain being up constantly. And
Right. If they
when
have
when
a
someone looks
Rillaboom and an EV,
when someone looks at this team and they're like, "Oh, okay. I'm just going to make sure the terrain is never up. I'm going to bring Ice Spinner. I'm going to bring the steel move that brings down terrain, Steel Roller, or
the roller, sure.
I'll just bring defog and get rid of your terrain. Your game plan is hindered significantly by just those moves.
Yeah, hugely.
And then all your mons other than Jugulus are going to be affected by webs in a way that if you're trying to boost speed, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Which I think is an talked about thing with terrain teams.
Mm-hmm.
And the booster energy item is how they're affected by sticky webs.
True.
You have webs of your own, which is good. I like Araquanid on this team.
Yeah, I think Arachnid's good here. I think you need a good fairy. Florgus is fine.
Yeah, for sure.
Bolt is a little weird to me, but I don't hate it.
Does it get rising voltage?
I don't think so. Let me check.
I mean, if it gets
It
rising,
does. It does.
okay, nothing is taking a Specs rising voltage other than a ground type or a volt absorb mod.
True, which is probably dying to Draco. Yeah, I don't hate that.
So it's like a Dracovish level breaker.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Okay.
But again, that's relying on terrain being up.
Yes.
I really like the Terramons here. But I just think your game plan is so reliant on one thing and one mon that it's very easy to prep against.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, I think you've got great roles. I do think at least Treads and Jugulus function outside of terrain. Obviously, Bolt does too.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I'm kind of looking at this team and I'm like, you have good roles. Overall, you're doing all right. But it's kind of hard for me to put a team that's so reliant on one thing above like a B minus.
Yeah. I also don't respect most of the physical threats. Um, Treads is usually there more for utility.
Agreed.
Leaves, I don't think is very good. Obviously, Terra helps a little.
I think
And then
leaves.
Arachnid is
I
probably
think
my favorite of the
if
bunch.
if you're able to get leaves under terrain with Terra, then it's scary. But that's a very big if.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because I'm able to respect some of these mons outside of terrain, I'm gonna give the team a B, but it's a very like hesitant B.
Interesting. I think this is like a C plus for me.
Oh wow, you're lower on this than I am.
I don't. It's just so reliant on terrain. Like, what happens when this team faces the Sneasler team and it's psychic terrain all game? You know?
I mean, I think you're gonna have a game plan for that. I don't. I think this team is heavily reliant on terrain, but I think most of the mons work outside terrain.
I think Bundle and Treads do, and then Jugulus and Leaves don't. But yeah, I guess that's enough. Yeah, I don't hate it.
But I mean, we've got similar issues. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go down to a B minus. I don't think it's I don't think it's a full B. But yeah.
Okay, cool. And that brings us to our last
Oh,
team.
and
The
Monferno's not a real mon, but we know that.
no, but like it's a 1 point or whatever. Which Zard do they have? Y? Interesting. So this is our last team. This is the Utrecht, I think. Something like that. Uxies,
It's Yard
coached by
Sand.
Ruby.
Yeah,
And they got
I haven't seen a Yard Sand team since like Gen 7, bro.
what? What? Elaborate on that. What are we looking at?
Mega Charizard Y plus Sand is like a draft archetype back in the day.
Oh, interesting.
I don't really know what the Sand does for this specific team, though.
Not a lot. Almost nothing.
Yeah, like literally almost nothing. But it is technically a Yard Sand team, so I thought I'd call it out.
Sure, that's very funny. Hazard setting, I think you're doing fine. It's not standout. It's not bad. Obviously, Cheetard comes every game anyways.
Sure, yeah.
Uh, Defogging, you're doing great. I think only Feeny actually wants to bring defog of the mons that get it, but you have a lot of mons that get it.
And Feeney can bring it almost every week, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's not an issue. You have some of the worst pivoting. You can dry pass with Umbreon, and you can flip turn with Latios, and I think that's it.
I mean, you have a Luxray technically.
Sorry, there is indeed a Volt Switch Luxray. I don't know.
It is technically there.
Yeah, this is a team where none of the Mons cost no points and none of the Mons cost all your points. So everything just kind of ends up being kind of middling. Obviously, Latios is 17 and Luxray is 3, so those are like kind of close to the extremes. But
Yeah.
having nothing above 17 points always feels kind of iffy to me.
Why is Basculegion on this team?
Not sure. Kind of feels like they threw like a dart at a board of ghost types and said, sure, let's go that one.
Yeah, like I don't feel like the physical breaker is needed. You have a Kartana. I don't feel like
Yeah,
a second water is benefiting this team. Uh,
this team spends a lot of points on weather setters and then does not capitalize on them.
yeah, your
If
weather
anything,
sweeper is for
Kartana
a
hates the
different
sun.
weather.
Yeah,
I think if you change out Basculegion or just change out Basculegion for a sand abuser, please. Can you hear me?
yes, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Speed tiers. I wish you had something faster than Salazzle, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Going down from there, it looks completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of Mons in like the above 100 range, which is nice. I think Feeney's kind of a fake speed tier. It is not running speed, but that's fine
Bro
anyways,
has never seen the Scarfini set, clearly.
clearly. I will say I don't love Umbreon here. Like you already have T-Tar. Obviously, they're very different roles, but just picking up a Mono Darkmon on a team that already has Dark is a little tough as far
Yeah,
as
I
just
think
getting those different stabs
I
goes,
mean it's
right?
probably there just to wish pass into Feeney, right?
Yeah, I think this team does benefit from Wish a fair bit. Obviously, Umbreon has decent HP for Wish passing. You can get going with Latios or Cart. I don't know. I think it's like a very medium team.
Umbreon, if you just replace Umbreon with a Blissey, it does the role that Umbreon needs to do for this team better.
Yes.
Which is not a
I
sentence I
don't really
say
like
much
this team.
which is not a sentence I say much because I'm the biggest Blissey hater on the planet.
Right.
I hate
Yeah.
passive fuckers, but on this team it's better than Umbreon.
I will say this team hates Taunt. Like, I
Yeah.
guess it's just Fumi and Umbreon, but like you definitely bring it for those.
T-Tar doesn't like being taunted either, to be honest. Neither does Sandaconda.
Or like Sub Nasty Plot Salazzle, Toxic Salazzle. Yeah.
Hey, Draft League players, bring the move Taunt! Because no one in this Draft League
True.
does, and it drives me up the wall.
I got a lot of taunt last season, but I was also playing against Speed Squack's stall team, so you kind of have to.
I don't know. I see no one bring Taunt, and it's irritating to me.
Or Encore, or Substitute. Like, there's options.
Yeah, I mean, people bring Sub, but that's just not enough Taunt,
For the
bro.
wrong reasons. Yeah, for sure. Cool team. I like a lot of it. I think that a couple transactions could make it way scarier.
Agree.
B minus in my books.
Yeah, I was looking at the same thing. B minus.
Right? That wraps it up. I think overall, my favorite team is probably the Marowaks with Dragapult Great Tusk. But there's definitely some cool
That's
ones.
probably the best team. My favorite team is the Sneasler, Slow King, Arctazol, Lele team. Because I
Yeah, that makes
drafted
sense.
it
I like
pretty
that
late.
one as well. Yeah, pretty cool.
Drop
Yeah,
Starmie, and I will officially endorse you as Mini Rocker if you drop Starmie for something better.
there you go. You heard it here. But yeah, I think overall the teams actually look really good. I'm really excited to see how they do. I can't believe this is our lowest division. There were no drafts that were like objectively bad.
No, I mean, I've seen Kanto drafts worse than the worst draft in this draft league, so.
Oh, definitely.
Um, I'm not talking about this season, but in general, I've seen it.
Sure. No,
Anyways, anything you want to say before we wrap this up, Koda?
I don't think so. Good luck in your matches.
Alrighty. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this draft analysis. Last thing, reminder: this is just our personal beliefs. Obviously, your opinions on your team are more important than ours. And if you like your team, that's what matters. Try to play your team. Try to win with your team. We are just two goofs talking, bruh. Your opinions
Hey, I don't
matter
know
more
shit
than
about
ours.
shit.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.